Well, hello and welcome to another episode of It's Steven Time. I'm your host, Steven Alexander. In today's episode, I have APSU students Courtney, Woodard, and Adria George from APSU's Women's and Gender Studies here to discuss APSU annual event, the Vagina Monologue, and much more. Stay tuned. Why? You're watching IST.
There's a Steven Show, the Steven Show, the Steven Show, yeah.
Attaining knowledge in areas we are not the most educated in broadens our horizons and allows us to be more educated. Here today to educate us more about women's studies is Courtney Woodard and Adria George. So how are you ladies doing today?
I'm good, Steven. How about you?
Good, good. Are y'all nervous?
No, not anymore.
Not anymore.
Okay, good. I don't want y'all to be nervous. I know earlier y'all seemed a little nervous, but
Yeah.
no reason to be nervous. You guys are good. You guys are good. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about your position with the Women and Gender Studies here at APSU?
Yes, so Adria and I are both interns in the Women's and Gender Studies department. So a lot of what we do, especially right now, is to put together the Vagina Monologues. And we also put on events like the Clothesline Project that is displayed in the UC Plaza, and then Walk a Mile in Their Shoes, which is a fundraising event for the Sexual Assault Center that we put on in Forterra Stadium, and we invite all of Clarksville to come. So we just kind of coordinate those events right now, and we are also student mentors in the Vagina Monologues course that Austin Peay offers this year.
Okay, okay. So what about you, Adria? What's your position here?
Well, I'm also an intern, but I'm also the co-director for the Vagina Monologues, and we are also the class mentors. But we're trying to do more outreach now. I think that's related more to Courtney's social work background, but we're trying to do more outreach to high school so we can get a better build of understanding gender and identity and sexuality and stuff at an earlier age. And that way they know that these courses and this entire minor is available to them as an option at Austin Peay, and it can help with their entire future careers for whatever they wanted to do.
Yeah. So I kind of want to ask, what does the program offer students? And also too, what did the program offer you both to allow you to want to join Women and Gender Studies?
Well, the program itself, it offers a lot of different courses surrounding, like Adria said, gender and identity and sexuality. So a couple examples of courses we have, one that Adria and I both took a couple years ago was race, gender, and sexuality, and it kind of just talks about like how those three like categories of identity impact people and how different types of identity impact like the world around you and your perspective, because we all have different like experiences because of our identities. A lot of our courses are like that as well, if you want to kind of like explain more about that.
So the normal coursework is that you take 3 classes with Women and Gender Studies, and then you take 1 class in African American Studies, because they partner up. A lot of people who wind up having Women and Gender Studies also have African American Studies as their minor. But within those coursework, you explore all the facets of intersectionality and how that relates to not only feminism, but to your everyday life. And it honestly, for me, it helped me explore different things that I had been keeping, like different scars that I had been letting fester into me and not letting me develop the way that I probably should have as a student. So you start to understand not only yourself, but also the people around you and the bigger ideas that you've never had to really fascinate yourself about. And that's hopefully what the entire coursework is supposed to do for people. But for me, it was just a growing and understanding that I had the ability to be a bigger student than what I thought I could be.
Have you both found yourselves impacting more students just by being in the positions that you are in? And if so, how? Like, what have students said to you?
Well, since my major is social work, I use the minor to kind of help in my social work field. So the students around me, I'm like more aware of like how their identities and everything affect their environment. And I'm also involved in housing and residence life as an RA. So like I use my minor kind of to understand issues that they could be going through and to get a better understanding of how I could help these like residents on my floor. And just in general, I feel like it's changed my perspective of just my world, because I came from a very small town, very closed-minded, and then I came here and learned like all of these different types of like experiences and everything. So it's really just changed like my entire world around me.
Okay, yeah. And you mentioned being an RA. So you're RA
Yeah.
right now?
Yes.
So you are the one, okay, one of you know my best friend. Is that, because didn't someone send an email or something?
Yeah, Matthew?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, okay, that's a side note. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, it's like, that's
No,
that's
you're
random.
fine, yeah.
Anyways, yeah, I'm sorry, I just thought of that. But I want to ask you just how, like, as a woman, as both women, what is the biggest thing that you have learned and you've taken away with being a part of women in gender studies? And how has the things that you've learned, how have you allowed those things, I guess, to teach others? How have you used those things to teach other ladies, you know, that look up to you?
Do you want to go?
Yeah, I'll go. So I'm in the history department, and being one of the few Black students that are in the history department is really difficult to get understand. It's a difficult way to get an understanding for them to see where your perspective is. Being a minority student and then also being a woman, there's not a lot of history majors that are women. So I've had to use like readings that I've done in women and gender studies. So like we talked about in the capstone, Gloria Steinem's A Lot of Learning is a Dangerous Thing, and how those little microaggressions toward Black females and just people of color in general have caused issues with their education and having to learn somebody else's history or having to learn somebody else's language. And so I've had to use that in my everyday life with dealing with my professors or dealing with the classroom setting. And so like yesterday there was a discussion about intellectuals, and I'm one of 5 Black students in that classroom, and it's the African American history class, and the majority of the students are white, and a majority of them said that they do see themselves as intellectuals, but the majority of the Black students did not raise their hand. And so seeing that type of division on how they input information, even though they're all getting the same information, why don't you see yourself in that facet?
Yeah.
Something that they know, but they don't have the confidence to know that they know it. So that's something that's able to help me explore how I want to go into the future as well.
Yeah, I like that. Smart. I love both of y'all. I love that. I love to see smart ladies, smart people in general, but I love that. I kind of want to talk about now, you both mentioned how diverse this is. I kind of want to know, just what have you learned about yourselves with being around so many diverse people? Because sometimes, for me, I grew up in a small town as well. I've always been diverse. I've always loved diverse people. But it wasn't until I got into college that I had to understand that it's even more diverse out here than you would think it possibly is. So yes, like, what have you learned about yourselves working with diverse people?
I think for me it was just opening up to different people's experiences, because I didn't really have a lot of diversity where I came from. So it's kind of just understanding where people come from and using that understanding when you like interact with them, because Adria and I both come from like different places, but we both share the same like love for women's and gender studies and like the same type of, you know, education for students. So it's kind of just like being aware of who you're surrounded by and like how their experiences impact them.
Yeah.
So that was a lot for me, because I had never really realized that before, because everyone from my town was like me.
Yeah. What about you?
I had to with being in that department, it was understanding. Being in the Women and Gender Studies department, I had to backtrack. It made me understand that like my own isolation was not something that was unique, but it was something that should be explored. So like me being a Black woman, that was something that should be explored more, because before I got into college, I had never heard of Black feminism. I had just heard of feminism.
Right.
And I thought that was just a term that anybody and everybody should use, but I didn't understand it to the concepts that I do now, and how Black feminism doesn't always relate to white feminism, or it doesn't always relate to LGBT feminism. But in those different facets, I can also see myself, and those are the bigger pictures that I should be aligning myself with.
Yeah, I like that. Well, ladies, we must take a quick commercial break, but guys, when we return, we'll have more with us. Stay tuned. You're watching IST.
You can help support Austin Peay students who don't have enough to eat by donating to the Save Our Students Food Pantry. The Save Our Students Food Pantry is looking for soup, pasta, canned meat, canned beans, peanut butter, and fruit. You can drop off your donations at the food pantry on Home Avenue. It's open Tuesdays through Friday, 8:30 until 4. For more information, call 221-1620, a campus reminder from Austin Peay.
I'm from Clarksville, Tennessee.
Fort Knox, Kentucky.
Jackson, Tennessee.
Hopkinsville, Kentucky.
Memphis, Tennessee.
Murfreesboro, Tennessee.
Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Knoxville, Tennessee.
Little Rock, Arkansas.
St. Louis, Missouri.
From Gaffney, South Carolina. Seattle, Washington.
Jeremy, Haiti.
I'm from Três Pontas, Brazil.
Chicago, Illinois.
Hawaii.
Phoenix, Arizona.
Brazelton, Georgia.
From Modesto, California. I want to be a neonatal nurse.
An athletic trainer and accountant.
Playing the NFL.
Interior designer. Physical therapist.
Law enforcement officer.
Ultrasound technician.
Social worker.
Physician. Politician.
Psychologist.
CPA.
A social worker.
Nurse practitioner.
Physical therapist.
Restaurant owner.
A politician. Started my own business.
Veterinary.
Elementary school teacher.
The NBA player.
Cardiovascular surgeon.
Anesthesiologist.
Businesswoman in Nashville.
Social worker in Miami, Florida.
Politician in Washington, D.C.
Colorado.
Orlando, Florida. Houston, Texas.
In Chattanooga.
Memphis, Tennessee.
Seattle, Washington.
Nashville, Tennessee. San Diego, California.
Nashville, Tennessee.
New York City, New York.
San Diego, California.
Atlanta, Georgia. Nashville.
Los Angeles, California.
New York, New York.
Memphis, Tennessee.
Nashville, Tennessee.
Orlando, Florida.
Los Angeles, California.
Baltimore, Maryland. Clarksville, Tennessee.
Carolina Beach, Carolina.
Philadelphia.
St. Louis, Missouri.
Clarksville, Tennessee.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Stephen Alexander. I am here in the studio with APSU students Courtney, Woodard, and Adria George from the Women and Gender Studies here on campus. So let's talk a little bit about the annual event, the Vagina Monologue. So can you kind of tell us what the history of that is?
So Eve Ensler, the playwright, she interviewed 200 women about their experiences, and she asked them a series of questions like, how, if your vagina could say anything, what would it say? If your vagina could wear anything, what would it wear? And how is your vagina?
Figuratively, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So the vagina is supposed to be a personification of an experience or of you. And so, because you're more than what people think that you are.
Right.
You're more than just your sexuality. You're more than any little facet. You are your vagina. And so she interviewed old women, young women, black women, Indonesian women. She interviewed everybody, and she came up with all of these monologues. And every year we have a spotlight monologue, which is like talking about a specific issue that we've had. Like during Trump's year of election, they had us. What was
it? It was about immigrant women and like their experiences.
And then we've had faculty and staff here have written one about experiences of women in prison and lack of hygiene products that are available to them. This year we have the men's prayer, and we are also reciting the respect monologue, which is talking about the Black vagina, which is talking about African American women's experience throughout history. But the vagina monologues as a whole is just something that helps polarize women and men and anyone who has experienced violence to be able to find help and get resources and be able to see that there is healing through a process.
Right. And I'm glad you clarified too, because when I went back and did some education, was studying myself, I found that men were involved as well, because I thought it was just like a ladies thing, like a feminist thing, but men are involved as well.
Yeah, very. Traditionally the play is performed only by women, but they've added in the men's prayer where men take a stand to help end violence against women.
Gotcha. Love that. Yeah. Okay, perfect. When it pertains to student interest, I want to know, why is it so important for students to really educate themselves about the vagina monologue? Because so many students think, oh, the vagina monologue, they're trying to play it off like it's stupid, but it's something that they need to be educated about. So why?
Well, I know like with Adria and I, we tried to incorporate everyone in this. So we reached out to a lot of different organizations around campus to try to get the students to come, because if you're going to end like sexual violence and violence against women, it has to be a community effort. It can't just be a small group of people doing it. The whole community has to be involved in the healing process. And that's part of the reason why we included the man's prayer into the spotlight this year, because we wanted men to be involved in it as well, because it's not just a women's issue, it's like everyone's issue. Yeah. So that's why we were like, we need to get the whole community involved, because everyone needs to know like that this is going on not just around the world, this is happening in Clarksville on Austin Peay's campus as well.
That's right, yeah, I like that. I kind of want to know, what is the most common misconception of the vagina monologues? Because we are talking about a word that is very, it's a normal word, but some people are not mature enough to understand it's a normal word.
It's a shadow over it.
Yeah. So what is the common misconception of it?
It's perverse. That we're like getting on stage and we're just going to be talking about menstruation and how disgusting men are, but it's not like that at all. It's about our experience as women or non-binary people and going about life, and like it doesn't have to be perverse if you don't make it perverse.
That's true, yeah. And so, honestly, before I knew anything about it, I remember being a freshman coming here and I saw a poster about the vagina monologues. I was like, what is this? It sounds so inappropriate. What are they doing? Then I educated myself. I was like, oh, okay, got it. It's literally like a figurative speech that means so much deeper than what it is.
Right.
I kind of want to talk about now, this is the 19th annual year for the Vagina Monologue on campus. Can you ladies tell us like what to expect from this event?
Well, it's an experience, to say that.
You won't leave not questioning something.
Okay.
Because you always, when you come in, most of the time, even Dr. Eichhorn has said before, most of the time when we have people come in, they view it in 3 stages. They come and they're a guest and they're a participant in donating to the Sexual Assault Center and seeing a good audience and seeing a good play. And then the next step, they want to be in it. And then after that, they might get lucky enough to be able to get into a position like me and Courtney are into, where we get to direct it and see the whole production come to life.
Yeah.
And so I feel like people who come and are open to coming bring somebody that isn't open to coming either, because it's going to make them look at it a whole different light, because it's not talking about vaginas and feminism and all of this, but it holds that in it. And being able to be entertained while seeing something that's so hard to understand and digest, it actually makes it easier for you to go through it and see what everybody else goes through.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Can you tell us like when the event will take place and where it will take place? And we also have like a graphic for it, so hopefully TD can work on that for us. But so yeah, can you tell us when it'll take place?
So it's going to be February 26th and 28th at 7 p.m. in the Clement Auditorium, and it will be $5 for students and $10 for non-students, and all of the money is donated to the Sexual Assault Center here in Clarksville.
Okay. So now I want to ask, what is some of the things that you've both personally experienced from this play? When you looked at the play, when you've been involved with the play, I know each year you guys take something away from it differently. Mm-hmm. What has it been that you've taken away from it?
Wow. Well, I know I did it my freshman year. I started in the class, and then I did it my freshman year. And I was like going through a lot then, like trying to adjust to college, being away from family, and just like trying to find my place. And I felt like my experiences were validated within the monologues in the play, that like I wasn't alone in my struggles. And so that was really good for me there. And then last year I was in it as well, and that kind of just gave me a new perspective on different people again. So I think it just kind of adds different perspectives every year, depending on which monologue you can perform, or the new spotlight monologues too.
Okay. And what about you? They're telling us we gotta wrap up, but can you give us a little short synopsis?
It just made me open up more of who I was, because before I read the Little Coochie Story that could, and I couldn't speak out in front of people. Like, I struggled to have public stance and public talking skills, and it pushed me out of my cocoon.
Yeah, like that. Okay, well guys, we must take another commercial break, but stay tuned with Courtney, Adria, and I. You're watching IST.
So there you are, shuffling through a stack of resumes, and you come to mine. This is it, first impression, my way in. But can my resume show you how I truly stand out? Like that I was studying, going to night school while working 2 jobs just to help my parents pay for groceries. Or being the first one to always step up. No, that's something you just can't put on paper. Look beyond the resume and discover new ways to develop great talent that is dedicated, hardworking, and determined like me.
Sure, I look cute now, but when my owner lost his job, it was rough. I was living on the street, and one night, me and this Cocker Spaniel got into it so bad, I wound up looking like an ice cream cone. I cried a little bit, but thankfully I got rescued, so I'm running, I'm jumping, all back to my old self. And I'm ready to give unconditional love, even if you put a lampshade on my head.
Welcome back. I have APSU students Courtney, Woodard, and Adria George from Women's and Gender Studies here in the studio with me. And now let's talk about V-Day. And under the logo it mentions until the violence stops. So what is V-Day and what does that mean?
So V-Day is the campaign that surrounds the Vagina monologues. It was also created by Eve Ensler. So what happened when the Vagina monologues was first performed, it was a one-woman show, and after the show, like, these women would come up to her and confess like violence that had been happening to them, and they would just kind of open up about it. And she realized, like, this is too much for me to do. I'm gonna start this like campaign. And so V-Day is the campaign that surrounds the play, and it talks about the violence against women. And the V can stand for whatever you want. It can be victory, it can be vagina, Valentine's Day. It's all around the same time for stopping the violence against women.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask about that too because I thought it stood for Valentine's Day at first, but it could be for whatever you want it to be. Okay, so in what ways are you individually, I guess, how are you guys both trying to stop violence in your own way on campus? Like, do you guys find there's a lot of violence on campus or here locally in our community? And what precautions are you taking personally to try to stop it?
I personally, because like my mother is a therapist, but she worked with domestic violence victims and people with sexual assault. And so I've always had the understanding that I couldn't have a bystander effect to something that was happening to another person. And it ended up being a victim of domestic violence. I had to get in a position where I understood that this was not right for me and I needed to get out, and I had a community behind me that was able to be established. If I didn't have that community, then I would have never been able to get out of that situation, or my mother would have never been able to be somebody who could help somebody in that situation. Yeah. So I think that what we're doing is building the community to be all of Clarksville, not just Austin Peay, not just women in gender studies, but to be able to have these little interpersonal conversations helps grow a movement. So yeah.
What do you find is the most common type of violence here, placed on campus and just like locally that you guys have run into?
I think probably sexual violence or emotional and like mental abuse, because a lot of people don't really talk about the emotional aspect of abuse. Most people think domestic violence is physical, but a lot of mental and emotional abuse can leave longer lasting scars than physical abuse can. And then just being on a college campus, a lot of students are at a higher rate of sexual violence on the campus, so we try to implement like awareness around that. I know in April we put up like the teal ribbons for sexual assault awareness, and then like Adria was saying, we have like the bystander like intervention training, and we also just have events surrounding like awareness of that so that students are aware and they know what is happening so they can reach out to help.
Yeah. Can you both kind of talk about, I want to talk about the aspects of abuse. So we know what sexual abuse is, but can you talk about emotional and I guess like manipulative abuse? Can you kind of talk about that a little bit? Because some people might be in these situations and they have no idea they're in these situations.
Right.
Understanding like coercion abuse is by understanding that it's long term. It doesn't happen every single day. It happens in a long, prolonged period, and that could be anyone that's a friend, family members, or in interpersonal relationships. But it's about understanding that the way that they talk to you, the subject matter might not be as as necessary, but the directness of how they're talking to you. Are they talking to you like a soft manner, but also coming across threatening? Are they coming across that they care, but they're hurting you at the same time with their words? It's about understanding how their language is working against you.
Right.
Because they're taking your power by doing that.
Right. And do you find that a lot of people who are the abusers, do they even know that some people do know what they're doing, but some people, do you find they have no idea that they are abusing people?
I think so, because a lot of abusers and perpetrators have been previously abused and they are unaware of that. A lot of it stems from like childhood abuse, and so that's how they were raised, so they don't think there's anything wrong with it, so they just perpetrate violence a lot of times without knowing.
Right, yeah.
Hurt people.
And that's the truth. That's the truth. They're telling us we have to wrap up, but before we go, I want to just ask you both, what advice would you give students who are currently going through some type of abuse or going through something, and they just feel like they're afraid to talk about it, they're afraid to just acknowledge it? What can they do? How can they acknowledge it, and how can they get the help that they need?
I think having a really good support system would be good, like friends, family members. A lot of times, if they don't want to talk about it, if a friend is aware, they feel more comfortable with that. They can always reach out to us as a department, and
we have resources for anyone, even without the support system of a family or friends. You have a support system with Austin Peay and with the Women and Gender Studies Department.
Okay, perfect. Ladies, thank you so much for your time today. And also, guys, if you are in need of any help pertain, you need to go see these awesome ladies, you can go to Hart Hall. Which room is it?
144.
144 in Hart Hall. So guys, thank you for tuning in today to It's Steven Time. I'll see you next week with more news and entertainment. And always remember to, let's go Peay.